Chilean students, social movements and environmental organisations are set to march in the capital Santiago to demand the resignation of President Sebastián Piñera over his involvement in the Pandora Papers scandal. Top officials of Mexico and the United States met on Friday and vowed to overhaul their joint fight against drug cartels. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has warned that only a third of the funds urgently sought for Afghanistan by the international organisation have been disbursed. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Chile, where this Friday students' organisations, social movements and environmental activists are leading mobilisations in the capital, Santiago, to demand the resignation of President Sebastián Piñera following the latest revelations of his dirty deals as part of the Pandora Papers investigation. The Confederation of Chilean Students, the Federation of Students of the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, as well as other organisations, gathered to march in response to the scandal surrounding President Piñera's personal enrichment through tax evasion to the detriment of the nation. Protesters stress that the revelations show he is unfit to hold the office of president. The mobilisations also come 2 years after mass protests and social unrest in opposition to the neoliberal policies of the Piñera government, which were met with brutal repression by Chilean police. And the Chilean Public Prosecutor's Office announced on Friday that it's opened an investigation into President Sebastián Piñera over the sale of the Dominga mining company through a firm owned by his children, which appeared in the Pandora Papers leaks. The head of the anti-corruption unit of the Public Prosecutor's Office explained the decision was made to investigate because of the possibility that the deal involved bribery and eventual tax crimes. According to an investigation by 2 local media outlets, the Dominga company was sold to a friend of Piñera's for $152 million in a deal carried out in the British Virgin Islands, a well-known tax haven. The investigation found that the payment was due to be staggered over 3 instalments, with a clause that stated the final instalment was dependent on not establishing an area of environmental protection in the area of the mining company's operations, as environmentalists demanded.
The National Prosecutor on 8 October has decided to open a criminal investigation into the facts associated with what has become known as the Pandora Papers and which are ultimately related to the purchase and sale of the Dominga mining company, which is linked to the family or was linked to the family of the President of the Republic. The National Prosecutor has taken his decision given that the background information could have the characteristics of the crime of bribery, which is correlated of bribery, possible tax offences, all of which will ultimately be the subject of an investigation.
A group of indigenous youths have been on hunger strike in the Colombian capital Bogotá for the past 18 days to denounce the government approval for a project that threatens the existence of their community located in the department of La Guajira. The group of demonstrators are camping out in Bogotá's Bolivar Square and demand guarantees that exercise their right to protest. Recently, the government of Iván Duque approved the construction of a wind farm in the department without the due approval of its residents and specifically the indigenous Wayu community. Protesters denounced that the department of La Guajira has been systematically abandoned by the state, with high rates of extreme poverty and child malnutrition above the average for Colombia, and a lack of social and development projects for its communities.
On the 18th day of the hunger strike, the Guajiro people have decided to move the peaceful demonstration to the capital of the country, to the Simón Bolívar Square, the political epicenter of decision-making in the country, a space where important struggles have been fought for the rights of the most vulnerable and where we hope to fulfill the oath of the 1st of July that we made to the Guajiro people. They say that we are only a handful of men and women, but dignity is not measured by numbers, and no matter how many we are, we have decided to defeat hunger and state oblivion. We refuse to surrender until dignity becomes a conquer.
A researcher at Cuba's Pedro Corrí Institute for Tropical Medicine has received the Young Talents for Women in Science Prize, awarded by UNESCO and the cosmetics company L'Oreal, for her work on the transmission and evolution of the Zika virus. Young scientist Gladys Gutierrez has a master's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology and is currently undertaking her PhD with research on the virus transmitted by mosquitoes at the Pasteur Institute of Guadalupe. With this award, she hopes to inspire girls to study science. Gutierrez has also played a leading role in scientific research to tackle COVID-19 in Cuba and abroad. Despite the major obstacles and economic limitations of the United States blockade, the Cuban Revolution has fostered not only the development of scientific knowledge and technology, but also ensured that women play a leading role. And we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United States and Mexico on Friday vowed to overhaul their joint fight against drug cartels during a visit by a high-level delegation, including U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The two sides have indicated a willingness to overhaul the 13-year-old Merida initiative, which Mexican officials see as a relic of the past. Instead, Mexico is calling for a new agreement that focuses on development funding and other root causes of crime and migration.
Challenges that Mexico and the United States can only solve working together as partners with shared responsibility. We know that drug trafficking and other transnational crime aren't just flowing south to north. This is a cycle that continues because of activity on both sides of the border. And the United States will do our part to try to end this cycle.
The goal is to lay the groundwork and detail joint work on security, on health, and on safe communities, development of our communities.
Almost a dozen sailors have been injured after a United States nuclear attack submarine hit an unknown underwater object in the South China Sea. According to a U.S. Pacific Fleet spokesman, the Seawolf-class nuclear attack submarine USS Connecticut suffered an underwater collision while conducting operations in one of the most contested regions in the world, a region where it might be asked what a U.S. warship is doing. The U.S. Navy said the extent of the damage was still being assessed. The USS Connecticut is one of 3 Seawolf-class boats, a late Cold War attack submarine designed to hunt the most complex submarines in deep blue water. In the meantime, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has warned the United States to recognize the serious harm of its actions surrounding the Chinese territory of Taiwan, while also referring to the accident involving the U.S. submarine in the South China Sea and calling for clarification of the events.
The U.S. should fully recognize the high sensitivity of Taiwan-related issues and the serious harmfulness of the relevant issues, abide the One China principle and the provision of the 3 joint communiques, and stop arms sales to Taiwan and military ties between the U.S. and Taiwan, so as to not seriously damage Sino-U.S. relations and peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. China will take all necessary measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. China is seriously concerned about the accident. The U.S. should offer a detailed clarification of information related to the accident, including the specific location of the accident, the navigation intention of the U.S. vessel, the details how the accident happened, what it collided with, whether it caused nuclear leakage, whether it damaged the local marine environment, etc.
And China on Friday condemned the visit by a group of French senators to Taiwan, accusing the delegation of undermining relations between Paris and Beijing.
There is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an integral part of China. Calling Taiwan a country blatantly violates the consensus of the international community, including France. People like Alain Richard do not lack knowledge on the basic norms governing international relations. If not, then he is doing this out of self-interest to undermine relations between China and France. China expresses its strong condemnation and strong opposition to this. We hope that the French side will respect China's sovereignty and territorial integrity and not send the wrong signals to Taiwan independent forces.
During a press conference, the Chief Prosecutor of the Republic of Liberia, Sima Serenius Cephas, stated that if Cape Verde authorities refuse to abide by the court ruling of the Economic Community of West African States to release Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab, this will constitute grounds for contempt of court.
I think the surest way to proceed is for the court to issue a writ of execution and possession, place that in the hand of the sheriff to proceed to Cape Verde and have sins served on the Attorney General. And in the writ of execution, it must be stated therein the time frame within which to release the diplomat, or the writ of possession should state that the sheriff or the marshal should travel with Alex Saab to the ECOWAS court. When that is done, and Cape Verde VERD does not act in that direction, that would constitute a defiance and a ground for contempt of court.
Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab was arrested by Cape Verde authorities in June 2020 following pressure from the United States government. Despite the ruling of the Economic Community of West African States in March 2021, Saab remains detained and faces extradition to the US. We have more details in the following report.
As the United States wages war against the people of Venezuela, the Venezuelan people remain united and stronger than ever. Alex Saab is the new symbol of resistance against the United States, a martyr of this conflict, and a symbol of American oppression. In June 2020, the US government instructed the government of Cape Verde to arrest the diplomat Alex Saab during an unscheduled transit on its territory, while he was on an official mission to Iran. Cape Verde has completely ignored the explicit ruling of the ECOWAS Court of Justice of March 2021, stating the arbitrary nature of the arrest.
La Cour a délibéré, tous les 5 juges de la Cour ont participé à la délibération, eux ont décidé que Alex Saab soit libéré immédiatement.
The government of Cape Verde willingly violated international law, diplomatic immunities, and human rights by arbitrarily arresting and detaining an innocent man. Their authorities have taken the law in their own hands by torturing and humiliating a diplomat on a humanitarian mission.
To me, it's a discrimination against the judgment of this court, because I believe if it was a European court, if it was American court, make this decision about Alex Saab, Cape Verde would accept it.
C'est sa décision que la Cour a prise. Elle n'est pas revenue sur sa décision. Donc malheureusement, il nous revient que le Cap Vert, où Alex Saab avait été arrêté, refuse d'exécuter la décision jusqu'à demain.
Alex Saab has committed no crime in Cape Verde, yet he is treated worse than a murderer without access to health care. Why did Cape Verde submit to domination by the Americans? Africa and Latin America share the same thirst for freedom, the same political consciousness, as well as the same challenges and ambitions for self-determination and emancipation. Alex Saab has been wrongly treated, and must be released. This collusion with the United States is what makes the Venezuelan people suffer.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, warned on Friday that only a third of the funds urgently sought for Afghanistan by the international organisation have been disbursed. On September 17th, just over a month after the takeover of Kabul by the Taliban, a ministerial conference in Geneva, chaired by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, saw donor countries pledge $1.2 billion in aid. But it was unclear how much of this amount was going into the $606 million specifically requested by the United Nations to finance humanitarian aid for 11 million Afghans by the end of 2021. The UN officials said only 35% of this amount had been disbursed to date, and of the 300 million requested by the UN Refugee Agency, only 18% had been received.
Most of the pledges have not yet been really disbursed materially, financially. So I think that's what we're urging states to do now. Disburse those pledges. The pledges were made, so it's a matter of disbursing them because we need those resources quickly. But unless that is found, I foresee a bigger humanitarian crisis, and from my specific perspective, I foresee massive displacement for sure, because people, if they cannot go to, they don't have health care, or water is not running, or there is no money, they will move inevitably, and move maybe outside of Afghanistan. And I think that this we should try to prevent, absolutely prevent.
The Kenyan fishing town of Homa Bay is facing a triple tragedy of malaria, HIV and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Director of Public Health, the town on the shores of Lake Victoria has one of the highest rates of HIV anywhere in Kenya, as well as more malaria cases than almost anywhere in the country. However, there is cause for new hope after the world's first malaria vaccine was endorsed by the World Health Organization for mass rollout across Africa. Local health officials have said that the new vaccine is a game changer in combating the disease, which accounts for hundreds of thousands of deaths each year across the continent. According to a WHO report, malaria killed 386,000 people across Africa in 2019, more than 90% of the global toll, with 6 African countries accounting for more than half of the malaria deaths across the world.
I call this one a triple tragedy because we are battling with communicable diseases at the same time. We're battling with the non-communicable diseases, and of course we're in the mix of the pandemic. So this one is taking toll on the health systems, and of course if you look at this in the mix, it's crazy.
Sierra Leone's president on Friday signed a bill abolishing the death penalty after a long campaign to end capital punishment. President Julius Maada Bio said the move meant the West African country had exercised horrors of a cruel past. 94 people were living under a death sentence at the end of 2020. However, no execution has taken place in the country since 1998, as death sentences are often commuted. After long resisting a formal ban on capital punishment, the government announced abolition plans in May, and the parliament then voted in favour in July. Under the new law, execution will be replaced with life imprisonment or a minimum 30-year jail term for crimes such as murder or mutiny.
My position was a hard and firm no to death penalty in all forms and for all crimes. The state has absolutely no obligation to undertake judicial killings of its own citizens in order to instill law and order or for political gains. The all too often familiar phrase of hanging persons by the neck until they die or tying persons to a stake and gunning them down are cruel, inhuman and degrading. We should never allow them to happen in this country. We are a civilized nation. We should not, we shall not, and we will never again execute any person in this sovereign republic of Sierra Leone.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.